and here I am today. So I'm really ecstatic to be here. I'm really excited to be here today to share with you my research, my studies. And if I say to you, hi, I'm an African American, you would look at me like, yeah, I know, right? Yes? Right. Yes. Okay, so raise your hand if you right now, yes, you believe me. I'm an African American. Okay. We have a few doubters, but okay. So that's how really my teachers saw me when I entered school in the Bronx, New York, as a teenager. I'm actually a Jamaican. I was born in Jamaica. I grew up in New York, and so my study pretty much is based on the fact that we do have some Caribbean students who are in our schools that are disguised as African Americans, and therefore it's a possibility that they may need some remediation needs, and they're not getting that particular need because they're assumed to be a student that may not need that particular help. So it's a little bit lengthy. I'm going to try to go real quick because my time is short right now. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the background of Caribbean students and some of the problems, the problem statement, conceptual framework, and the qualitative data, and some findings, and some recommendations. So the title is Caribbean Students' English Struggles, Their School Leaders' Perception of Their Language Needs. I'll just talk about the guided question real quick. So the guided research question is, to what extent do the mental models of urban school administrators contribute to the British West Indian Caribbean immigrant students' underachievement in oral and written standard English? Now, I'll just refer to the students as I go through as Caribbean, since it's kind of lengthy to say British West Indian Caribbean immigrant students all the time. So you know who I'm talking about. I'll just skip through. Okay, so approximately 39.9 million immigrants live in the United States. This is the largest recorded number of immigrants the United States has seen in its history. So according to the data from the Migration Policy Institute, between 2000 and 2008, the growth among the Black, African, and Caribbean immigrant school-age students have totaled 1.3 million. So this is really significant for us. This represents approximately 63% growth in Black, African, and Caribbean immigrants. Despite this significant change in the number of Black immigrants that are now located in our schools, it is still neglected. The studies have been neglected to really focus on these students. So research has shown that thousands of British American Caribbean immigrant students are among the thousands of immigrants who enter our schools yearly. It's reported in 2005 that 2/3 of the 2.8 million foreign-born Blacks in the United States were born in the Caribbean or other Latin American countries. Based on this report of influx of Caribbean students in the United States school, it is necessary to determine the academic needs that these students have. About 3 million foreign-born children make up 5% of school-age children that are in the year 2000, with the number of first-generation immigrants students increasing in the upper grades. So we have Pratt Johnson, and with this research, they asserted that among these immigrant students, English-based Creole-speaking students from the Anglophone Caribbean constitutes the largest immigrant group of ESL students in the United States. So, they predominantly speak a language called Creole or Patois. And so, Caribbean immigrant students are from countries where English is their official language, but they primarily speak Patois. According to Allen, Patois is considered an unwritten or unstandard form of language because it does not have a well-defined linguistic system and therefore defines clear-cut definition as either language or dialect. And of Creole language are evident in their oral and in their written assignments, thus limiting some Caribbean students' academic performance and ability to meet standards and or academic gains required by the mandate to be college and career ready. Now, this is important to me because I started my teaching career in New York, and when I started my teaching career, my second year teaching, I was transferred to an elementary school where it was a predominantly Caribbean-based neighborhood, and so I encountered many students who were from the Caribbean islands, and they struggled with mastery in standard English, orally and written. And that became a passion for me because I also knew what I experienced with my other friends as a teenager, but also to see the younger students really experience that was really became a passion for me. And so that's the reason why I really got into this type of research when I had the opportunity to do further studies. So furthermore, Edward, he shared some general features of the Caribbean English-based Creole. He identified 12 key points of this distinction between with the Creole and the Patois language. And there's further information about that once you get on the Padlet. I put a copy of the study in there so you can look it up and get more information. Okay, so the background knowledge. There are contributing factors associated with the immigrant struggles with oral and written standard English. So Caribbean students come from a diverse culture, socioeconomic, varied language backgrounds, and many arrive with limited schooling and low English proficiency. Some students migrate to the United States because their parents experience economic hardship in their homeland. Economic hardship means that their child or children would have limited education. Because children who migrate to the United States may or may not have obtained an adequate education while they grew in the Caribbean because of their poor economic conditions at home. So the problem statement. Caribbean students speak predominantly Creole or Patois. They struggle with implementing standard English when completing both oral and written assignments. Caribbean students are not legally entitled to oral or written standard English language, and currently the school system inadequately meets the needs of these students. And they're not entitled legally because their country's official language is considered to be English. So our schools are inadequately right now equipped to really identify what these struggles are and how to actually support these students. There are 3 known types of Patois or Creole. Some students arrive and they might be the student that is at the higher level, or it could be a student at the lower level. So baccalaureate is known as the greatest degree of difficulty in completing the oral or written standard English assignments. So currently there's not an avenue for educators to discern which of these particular levels the students are when they arrive in the country. Currently, in one urban school district, there is a specific test that's designed to assess newly enrolled British West Indian Caribbean immigrant students to figure out where their level of English proficiency is at. However, their school system, there is not a system for them to discern where they are. However, at that particular school, they do have a survey that they give to other immigrant students to determine where they are, where the level of proficiency is for English. Because of the mental models of the school educators, many school leaders provide Caribbean students with limited traditional American educational practices. The National Center for Education Statistics reported that the dropout rates among sub-population groups in the year 2002. For example, in New York City, it was reported that 23.53% of the males and 19.66% females from the Caribbean student population dropped out of New York City high schools. According to Albertino et al., the high school dropout rates are due to Caribbean students' negative experiences in the United States public schools. Now, Albertini further explained that the United States has a better educational system and environment than many third world countries, and so therefore his concern was he's thinking that the students should not have a difficult time here; they should really have a good experience. However, Gilbert in 2009 he agreed with Albertini, but he argued that the Black immigrant youth mistrust their teachers, and as a result, they resist education. These negative experiences may stem from their academic needs. Some Black immigrant students may choose to drop out because they become frustrated with their learning experiences in United States schools. Therefore, it is essential to help the British Muslim and Caribbean immigrant students maintain a positive perspective regarding obtaining an education in the United States. Caribbean students enrolled in middle school, they tend to maintain an average about a 2.0 or a C average. Now, Albertini referred to this issue as disheartening, and he stated that students must meet educational qualifications in order to succeed in future educational and career opportunities. And Central, students also mentioned that students do not fully develop their academic skills. If they don't do that, then they will have educational deficiencies that will lead to problems throughout their economic and social life. It is important to determine the academic needs of all the students in our classrooms so that all students have the opportunity to be successful both now and in the future. So the lack of identity for these students, I mentioned that before, that they are pretty much like this guy. So the lack of identity is also an issue, and it extends far beyond the school system. As observed by the Bureaus of Statistics, they use the term Black, right, which encompasses all population for the Black. And so this term is broad, and it does not distinguish an African American Black from an immigrant Black. So research has shown that Black immigrant students usually check the Black ethnic box on enrollment forms, and as a result, there is no alert to administration that these students may need assistance. Conceptual Framework. Since 1990 to 1996, Conceptual Framework for Successful Leadership is the basis for the study, because this research examines key components of Singh's theory as they relate to three urban schools, their leadership team. So Singh's theory will help to provide clarity in understanding how these leaders think, their perceptions concerning British Muslim and Caribbean immigrant students' academic needs. He examined leadership organizations and expounded on the five key components that help organizations maintain better leaders. But he discussed personal mastery, he discussed shared vision, mental models, team learning, and system thinking throughout the organization. As aspects of these components allow researchers to look into issues affecting students' achievement as some of urban schools have been overlooked. So Singh mentioned that when leaders have personal mastery of their leadership practice, then they have a subsequent drive that influences their goals, aspirations, and objectives. Therefore, personal mastery of leadership involves recognizing the current reality of the students, of all the students, and their academic needs. The current reality of the Caribbean students identify themselves as Black in the United States. That's their current reality. Thus, there is no alert to their language and no English proficiency assessment given to them upon enrollment in the schools. As a result, the Caribbean students' immediate academic needs have gone undetected by school leaders. Unequipped and untrained teachers who do not understand the learning needs of the diverse immigrant population have the challenge of educating these immigrant students. This study focused on Vygotsky's sociocultural theory and Schumann's acculturation theory. From the Vygotsky theory, this was applicable to this particular study because, as noted previously, these Caribbean students are not enrolled, that are enrolled in the United States schools, are from an environment that speaks predominantly Patois or Creole. And they live in an environment for most of their lives. That's all they speak, that's their primary language. And from Schumann's acculturation theory, it suggested that language acquisition is a component of acculturation that assists immigrant students in developing their desired second language, which would be oral and written standard English. Once these Caribbean immigrant students' needs for oral and written standard English remediation is determined, then they will have the opportunity to learn in environments that predominantly exposes them to oral and written standard English. Upon arrival in the United States schools, often the staff is really inadequately equipped to identify what those particular needs for the students are. So because of the current mental models or thinking or perception of our leaders, the Caribbean students have received traditional American educational practices, and as a result, they rarely are offered oral and written standard English remediation. In order to meet learning needs for these students, researchers have noted the need for further research regarding Black Caribbean immigrants' academic needs. Now, there were limited resources and for researching this. Most of the research that I found were dated, and it really took a lot of digging deep and to find a lot of resources and articles to research these particular students. But even though it was difficult, I was able to still find many sources to support or to determine what was going on. Now, this is an area with limited researchers that I have explored, but it is also recommended that researchers would study more Black immigrant students. So for the literature review, in conducting this review, I mentioned that it was limited resources, but at times it was so difficult to find information. But even though it was difficult, I did have current articles relating to the oral and written standard English remediation needs, and I was also able to obtain literature that addressed other aspects of Caribbean immigrant students' lives. So some of the other aspects that's mentioned in this research, I also talked about school leaders' perceptions. I talked about interventions for the Caribbean students' political views, students at risk, the background on the British West Indian Caribbean immigrant students, contributing factors that may be considered. I also addressed review of the second language learners, minority language, mistrust and mistreated, misjudged, educational issues, their socioeconomic impact, their language, which is Creole-based English, second language acquisition theory, and leadership. So in the field of linguistics, there were several different studies that I researched. I researched their linguistic researchers, sociology, psychology, education. I researched many of these different researchers, theories, just to make sure that I covered all the bases, and that's also included more and more depth in the studies. For this particular research, I used a qualitative research. I did interviews. I interviewed teachers and administrators from elementary school and secondary schools. And from this research, the participants, they shared their personal experiences during this data collection process. The study included different sources, 3 sources. I used triangulation when I reviewed the data, went through all of the interviews, looked at all of the codes and themes. I used the data from the 2 different interview groups to confirm the merging findings from the study. In addition to that, I also included data from school records to further do some triangulations in the findings. The population size were 6 teachers and 3 administrators from elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools who worked closely with these Caribbean immigrant students. And these interviews helped identify the Caribbean students' specific academic areas of oral and written standard English through their perspective of those students and the administrators who work closely with the students. I searched the results with the school leaders in hopes of affecting positive change for the academic experiences for these Caribbean students. What's the significance? The significance of this study is to create awareness regarding the academic struggles that some of the Caribbean students experience. Also, to look at the results to see if this study may, 1, help develop an understanding of the English language needs of the Caribbean students in the United States schools. 2, determine if the perspective of the school leaders contributes to the academic struggles that the Caribbean students experience. Now, this qualitative research study also may help educators be better understanding of the learning needs for the Caribbean students and to provide interventions that will meet their needs, academic needs. This research also may lead to social change in areas where there are students with influx of students who speak English-speaking Caribbean students who struggle with proficiency with English, with oral and written standard English. Some of the key findings: the studies have shown that the Caribbean immigrant students are located in large cities. And these students, they arrive with diverse backgrounds and life experiences. Therefore, the mental models, the way we think about them as they come in from school administrators regarding their learning needs are critical. And as these educators' views contribute to the academic success or lack of success for these students. There was a perception that the British Caribbean West Indian immigrant students do not need oral or written English remediation and enrollment in the United States schools. However, there were immigrant students who predominantly speak Patois, Creole, even though English is their country's official language. And so this is from the research that I did. These are some of the findings. So the following 4 themes emerged from the data analysis process. So some of the Caribbean students, they have standard English academic needs that are identified in the classroom. So as the teachers shared their views with me, they mentioned that they do notice that within the students' writing, within their conversations, that they are really struggling with implementing standard English when they complete assignments. They also mentioned that the students are not passing the state exam because they are having issues with mastery. So number two, some British West Indian Caribbean immigrant students are in need of remediation. Some are not. It depends on the level of education they come to this country with. And then number three mentioned that some of the immigrant students of color are stereotyped as African American students since English is their identified language. And four, teachers and staff are not well trained and equipped to address the special language needs of these students. So it was determined by the study that these students are understudied, that they speak English as a second language, and assignment assessment should be created specifically for newly enrolled Caribbean students to determine their level of English proficiency. And further studies need to occur to determine specific remediation practices that will benefit the Caribbean students. There are three pressing recommendations that resulted from the data. First, some Caribbean immigrant students need remediation to assist with their academic success. It is determined that immigrant students will benefit from remedial assistance upon enrollment since several factors contribute to their underachievement in the classroom. And administrators should advocate regarding the necessity to determine the standard English proficiency of Caribbean students upon enrollment. The majority of the participants in the study concurred that school districts need a process to identify the Caribbean immigrant students' academic needs upon enrollment. It was reported that ESOL teachers are now actually coming in contact with these students more and more every day. Therefore, it is strongly recommended not to just place the Caribbean students in the same learning category as the ESOL because there is a difference. The Caribbean immigrant students' remediation needs need to be determined because it's different. And when I say it's different, what this means, they do understand English, they can understand when you're speaking to them, but speaking it and being proficient at it is a struggle for them. That was one of the findings. So near 2009, she further states that English-based Creole speakers would be better served in an environment like Gopal described as English as a second dialect classroom, and this was done in Canada, advocated for mainstream classes with teachers who are appropriately trained. Further research needs to be conducted in this area to gain a better understanding of the oral and written struggles that these students experience. A testing process for these students, for the Caribbean students, is necessary in order for educators to adequately educate all of the Caribbean immigrant students in a manner that will meet the mandate for college and career learning. Finally, newly enrolled Caribbean students should not be mainstream in the classroom without first determining their proficiencies and how to help them. No matter the school age of the students when they arrive, it is recommended as well that they receive some specific instructions in chronological order. Next steps. Right now, I'm trying to make sure that for my next steps, I'm working with urban schools where there are influx of Caribbean immigrant students to come to do further studies in this particular field. This field is not as well diverse with researchers really digging into it as much. So since there are 3 known types of Creole, it is really important that others really push this particular study. So currently, I'm trying to work on a specific protocol for making sure that we're able to assess the students as they arrive in the country to determine their level of remediation needs and how to actually provide interventions for them. Are there any questions? So in the interview, in some of the interview questions, in the interview process, the teachers mentioned the fact that these students are overlooked, and they're mostly overlooked, in the beginning, part of them being enrolled, in the sense that, okay, it should have been like a red flag indicating that they are from another country and they have a second language that they speak, which is their primary language. And so therefore, immediately they should have start receiving some sort of intervention to help them become proficient at writing and speaking English. But that was not the case for the particular teachers that I spoke to and principals. That was not occurring at those schools. They weren't doing that. And so in the initial stages, they were neglected. But once, because I taught those students as well, but I knew when they came to the classroom, because I have that background as well. So I knew, and immediately I was able to start giving them that intervention. But that's not the case for everyone, because some teachers are not aware of that. So that's the reason why in some of the research that I looked at, they mentioned that some of the teachers are not adequately trained to really deal with that particular situation. But it is right now, because right now we're looking at all students in our classroom to have growth. That's something that we're pushing now. So the teachers who are at that level where they can identify that, yes, they are making those suggestions to put them in an area where they can get some sort of remediation. Yes, they do, and it's mentioned in here too. They do have that particular survey, but it's not offered to the Caribbean students because their country's official language is English. But these students, their primary spoken language is not. It's Creole-based. Right. And let me say this too. 2 years ago, I inherited a stepdaughter. She came from Jamaica, and she went to 9th grade, and so the same thing occurred with her. She assumed, she didn't need any assistance, and so a year later, because I'm thinking she's getting everything in school because she's in a really good school. They gave her the test, the PSAT test, and her scores were so low with the reading comprehension and the English language. And I explained to them when I went for a conference that she needs the extra assistance, the extra remediation. She needs it. She may not seem to be a child that may need it, but she does because she has the barrier, So when she speaks to me, especially when she first came, her primary language is Pike. So that's all she wants to speak because she's comfortable in that particular language. But now I'm trying to slow her down a little bit and try to, because when she wants to speak in English, she really has to focus. It's not as fluent for her as it would with her primary language. So she has to slow down to really think about what she wants to say to speak English. So it is a process for them. They have to really learn how to use standard English. It's not something that they're used to.
You think that you're seeing breakdown more in the intermediate and high school level than the primary?
Yes.
The primary teachers are working
Yes.
more closely with the students on a one-on-one and small basis.
Yes, that's a good question, and yes, that was one of the findings too when I compared the different school levels, because we did elementary, middle, and high school. The high school teachers, they definitely don't offer that remediation right away. They just it doesn't. But in the elementary school, all the students are receiving that immediately. They're starting to pull them because they notice it right away, more so than the middle and the high school teachers. So yes, that's a good point.
This is also an equity issue. All students that are in a public education setting should be able to get services that meet their particular needs. But I was wondering if the study took a look at the process that Native Americans sometimes have to go through to be able to speak oral and English, because sometimes they speak in their tribe, they speak not only one but two or three languages. And we went to a conference in Arizona, and we saw that tremendous effort was made to address the issue with parents. Parents were able to come into the parent room and certain things expressed to them. And then there were cards, flashcards, one language, another language, and a third language, up in the classroom. So perhaps the study can take a look at how we get studies from the Native American, how do they assist those students in becoming fluent in oral
That's something that like I said, I really want to continue to really delve into this a little bit more, especially for the upper grades, because there needs to be an awareness. And so my studies, from the studies that I did, it's just been really interesting just to see the feedback that I received. So I just want to look into it some more.
Felt that there was a deficiency. He would not speak because he realized that he speaks very quickly because we can understand what he's saying. And but it was one of the challenging standpoints. So even now that he's an adult, he has that problem. I really appreciate this.
Thank you for being a good listener, an attentive listener. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say that as the world shrinks and we begin to learn about other countries and the economy, is going to be critically important as we make our children not just mono language linguistic, but try and, linguistics, etc. And so sometimes I think when students come from other places, there are biases, and your study did mention some biases, but it is good for us to learn about other people, other countries, and what we can gain from those types of relationships. So perhaps social climate, school climate needs to be something that you may want to address, and transformational leadership, Dr. Blake mentioned. Those types of leaders will make sure that every child is comfortable in the setting. I am from the United States Virgin Islands. I grew up in New York. I think I went to first grade or something. But at the elementary school, it is easier. Those children will correct you in a minute. No, you say it like this. So the elementary school really is a better setting for learning experiences. Junior high and high school, all the other issues that are going on is going to be difficult.
You think that I think one of the biggest barriers though is that those kids look black.
Yeah.
They look like regular
Yeah.
Black Americans, and if you don't know, it's because you're dumb and other people might not understand. And a lot of teachers honestly they don't think of it as a heritage.
Right. Right. And they don't too, right, because they don't open, and the students when they first arrive, they will not speak. They're not going to talk because they don't want to say something and people laugh at them because of course they predominantly speak Patois or Creole and it doesn't sound the same. Like I had a student she came to this country and it was her first day and someone said this. Well, she came to me. She said, "Teacher, injure me," right? So what that means is the little boy poked her. Now, if I didn't know what she was saying, right, I wouldn't have been able to assist her because what she said to anybody else wouldn't have made any sense because she didn't know how to say it in English. That's all she knew how to say. And so I think, like you said, we just need to be more aware. And then, of course, with the enrollment form, that's something that I looked into too. But when I asked for some records from the urban school district that I researched, I asked for their records. And when I looked at their records, the parents, they checked black. And that English was the language because there is no other choice. There isn't anything on there that says, Patois was my main language or I'm from the islands or anything else. So, of course, that's what they had to work with. And so that's the reason why. And the kids are not going to speak or say anything because they really don't know how to. And after a while, they'll get the gist of English quicker than any other nationality. However, even though they get the gist of it, they don't know themselves how to do the standard English when they're completing their assignments.
And then Native Americans, they do all Native Americans.
Right, that's a whole other issue.
Will you all thank Dr. Erica Williams Pike, please, for NABSE class?